The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back, and it's Lovin' Baseball when we were 12 and innocent. My guest is former Major League pitcher Randy Lerch, who was 12 years old in the Sacramento area, which was a hotbed for baseball, and 80 miles from San Francisco, 70 miles from Oakland. You had it good growing up, Randy. Think back to when you were 12, first baseball memory.
Well, thank you for having me on your show, Ralph. And what a great subject. Shoot, 12 years old. That's pretty much when it all begins for us kids, and all the dreams of what we want to be. And for me, it was like a lot of kids. It was to be a big league baseball player, and I was blessed to have my dreams come true. And the memories that I have is. My dad, who was a semi-baseball player in the Sacramento area, he used to take me out and practice with me, and he was my little league coach, and I was actually just the outskirts of Sacramento, Rancho Cordova. I think you know where that area is, Ralph.
Absolutely, up Highway 50 towards Placerville. And some really pretty country. Above Sacramento a little bit, getting out of the valley, so it cools off in the winter, in the summertime. And you were blessed. What a great place to grow up. Who were some of your teammates that your dad coached?
Well, the teammates that I coached weren't anybody probably that people would remember, but the ones I played against were some great players, little league players, and I actually they grew up to be major league players, and some of the people might remember we all grew up and ended up being on the same high school team. Larry Wolf, who played with the Twins and the Red Sox, and Jerry Manuel, who was manager of the year and played with the Montreal Expos, was drafted as the first-round draft choice with the Detroit Tigers. But I don't know if I finished my sentence. I'm talking. I didn't complete the one with Jerry. Was the manager of the year with the White Sox. We had people like that, and then a lot of these great players went on to form a high school team, buddy.
Wow. How about when you went to your first pro game in those days with your dad? Was it Oakland or San Francisco?
Went to watch the San Francisco Giants, and those were the days of Willie Mays and Willie McCovey and Juan Marichal, and I don't know, I'm aging myself here, but those were ageless ball players, the Alou brothers, Bobby Bonds, and players like that. And I was blessed enough to be able to, actually I faced Bobby Bonds when he was with the Cardinals, and I got to face the great Willie McCovey when he was still around and doing very well with the Giants.
What were your memories of those people as a kid, and how did they match up as an adult? In other words, were they bigger than life, even when you were bigger than life?
They were. I told the story in my book that God in the Bullpen that I used to, as a kid, you mentioned 12 years old, I used to sneak my transistor. Can anybody remember a transistor radio in those days? The little radios that you could put in your pocket, you know, and I used to take that to bed with me and listen to the Giants play, and you know, of course, like I said, with Mays and Marichal and McCovey and all those guys, I used to get to, you know, listen to them hit a lot of home runs, and then they were bigger than life when I was listening to them, and then holy cow, I was just telling a story the other day. You can't imagine how big William McCovey looked. I think he was, 6'4" or 5", Ralph? And
6'4", yeah.
140 pounds or something. He was just a giant at the plate. So he was bigger than life when I was a kid and bigger than life when I was a big kid.
Okay. I titled the podcast when Lovin' Baseball when we were 12 and innocent. How did you break your innocence, so to speak, about baseball, about life? What contributed to that?
If you can be more specific as far as innocence.
Well, when you were 12, you had ideas of what baseball was like. And how did they coincide with the reality once you were in the game? How were you innocent then, and how did you become non-innocent? Okay,
I get it now. When I was a 12-year-old kid, you know, these ball players that I used to watch and listen to is even my grandfather used to take me to the Giants game, the old Candlestick Park. They called it the Stick. You being an Oakland A's fan across the bay there, but
well, you know, I am mixed because I was a Giant fan in New York, and when they moved, it took a piece of my heart, and I was lucky enough to live my adult life in California, really close to them. But I never really totally forgave them for moving. I forgave the players. It wasn't the players. It was management. And my thing is when a team moves, you're hurting the kids more than anything. And there should be some sort of, before a team is allowed to move, there should be something, the city should have some domain where they, most of all, they can't take the name with them. That's a disgrace. And they should exhaust all possibilities of selling it to an owner that wants to stay in whatever city, because I think, and there were a number of teams in the 50s and 60s that moved, and it wasn't right. So that's what I'm thinking. In answer to that question, as I babble on, the business end of sports, I guess that's what I mean by breaking your innocence. Any stories about being a pro and realizing it's pro, not amateur?
I do, and you brought my memories though when you were talking as far as the innocence, and I'll get to that at the end of this little speech. But you sure brought to the forefront of my mind that you know, people don't think about the kids and as far as management and stuff like that and how bad it hurts them. And I never really thought about it except, but I always thought, boy, if I'd become a Major League Baseball player, you know, through, of course, my dreams, you know, I can't wait to go and you know, and rub elbows with all the little kids like me, because I remember my first autograph that I got. It was Jose Pagan. The Giants were playing the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I remember that a foul ball came into the stands, and the man that was right next to me caught the foul ball, And I just missed it. Like a lot of little kids did. You probably did. Brought your glove. You're a lefty like me, and the man caught it. And you know what? He was what a kind thing he did. He gave me the ball, and then they pointed my grandpa and I down to where the players come out, and I was lucky enough to get Jose Pagan to sign my ball, and then. After I made it to the big leagues, it made such an impression on me how great it felt to be able to that the player actually this bigger than life in my eyes man, the Major League Baseball player signed my ball, and I swore that if I ever had that chance, I would always make sure that I signed balls for the kids, and I did, and the reward came back to me after so many years, after I wrote my book and I got on Facebook and I got connected with the Phillies fans that used to watch me when I was playing in Philadelphia in the late 70s. And a lot of these fans would say, you know what, you were one of the guys that meant so much to me when I was an 8-year-old little boy or 10-year-old little boy.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, they would come. They would say on Facebook on the Messenger. Who I talk to a lot of people on Messenger still, and they say we will never ever forget, or I will never ever forget when you stood there and you signed baseballs and you signed them for all the little kids that were out there. And now I hear that the innocence has gone away. That the fans are saying that you're lucky if you can get a player to even sign a ball for the kids anymore, because they want money for everything, and so that innocence of the kids going to the ballpark, being able to stand along the first baseline before the game and watch batting practice and get autographs from the players is gone. It's a business now.
Right. I got to tell you a Jose Pagan story. As you know, I spent the 80s and 90s working for Topps Baseball, the baseball card company, and I would go around and sign players with the $5 check, and when they reached the majors, we had their permission to use their face, their likeness on baseball cards. So I'm going for the job. I had to go cross country to the winter meetings, and I'm at the hotel was in Hollywood, California, Hollywood, Florida, where they had the winter meetings.
Right.
And I'm in the lobby, and I'm waiting around for an interview, and who do I chat with was Jose Pagan.
Oh, God.
And he made me feel so at ease. He's just a ball. He was just a retired ball player, and I realized that I'd be dealing with human beings in whatever my position. I knew what my position was going to be with Topps, but that's what it's about. It's about humanity. But there's always something in baseball. There's always a connect somewhere, every conversation or whatever. But you brought up Jose Pagan, and a big smile went on my face. Also, I wanted to ask you, who was your favorite announcer back then? Was it Lon Simmons when you were a kid that you listened to with the Giants baseball?
It was Lon Simmons and Russ Hodges.
Right.
And my dad, he grew up in Los Angeles area, so he was a big Dodger fan, and so my number 2 was Vin Scully, but it was Lon Simmons and Russ Hodges that I remember to this day. I can hear my dad now really getting all over. I don't know if it was Lon or Russ, but and you probably remember, Ralph, that my dad said, oh yeah, they try to always fake you out when when a guy hits Mays or whoever, well, Mays usually hit him over the fence, but he said he would always mimic the announcers. My dad would say, "Yeah, long drive, going back, 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 back." Everybody's ready to him say, "Get out of here!" His famous thing, and he goes, "Nope." He caught it at the warning track. And my dad, because he was a big Dodgers fan, he would say, he would say that, see, they don't know how to announce. If they were any good, they would know that ball wasn't going out of the ballpark. And, of course, I had the opportunity to meet the great Vin Scully when I first walked onto the Dodger Stadium after making the team in 1977. And people said, introduced me to Vin Scully. And to this day, I remember, that great experience.
Lon lived in Alameda, California, which is right across the bay from San Francisco. He lived on Bay Farm Island in Alameda, and I would see him occasionally in shopping at Safeway. And as not shy as I am, I admit that, I could not go over to Lon and have a decent conversation. It was like, I was so in awe of the guy that I would have sounded like an idiot. And I tried once, and oh, hi Lon, you're great, this guy was captive. This guy had the voice, the most pleasant baseball voice going. He was our Vin at the time. How about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I don't think the announcers realized how much the kids idolized him, because I remember as a kid, I used to, Willie Mays was my idol, and if I had my choice, I'd have been a center fielder instead of a pitcher, even though, the choice was already made for me. I couldn't run or catch like Willie did, but I always used to pretend like I was Lon Simmons or Russ Hodges, in the long drive, and Mays makes a spectacular catch, or however he said it. So my point is that these announcers were rock stars to the kids.
Absolutely, and most of them really enjoy the job. You can't do it 160 games a year and do all that traveling without enjoying the pleasure that they're giving others.
Well, my guy in Philadelphia, and he was just too bad he died too young, was Harry Callis. He was just a wonderful announcer, but on top of it, I didn't know Lon Simmons, but Harry Callis was he was a player's announcer. He would sit back in the back of the plane on road trips and stuff and play cards with the guys and go out drinking with them and all that stuff. And a great announcer, along with, that goes along with it.
Did you get to meet Richie Ashburn back then?
I did. I met Richie Ashburn, and I was very intimidated by him because he was just such a great player, and I never knew what to say to Richie because he was bigger than life, and like I said, a great player, and he was so quiet. Richie was great for Harry with being the color man for Richie Ashburn being the color man for Harry Callis, and so he was so quiet to approach when I was playing. So, but they were a great combo. But yeah, I didn't get a chance to talk to Richie Ashburn much, but boy, he was a great player.
Well, he finished his career with the Mets and was hit 300 with the Mets in 1962. So there you go. I heard a quote about a fielder in the 50s, not named Willie Mickey, or the Duke?
And you broke up a little bit, but you talking about Richie Ashburn?
About Richie Ashburn, he was the best, and this is a quote I read earlier today. He was the best center fielder in the National Leaguer in the 50s who wasn't named Willie, Mickey, or the Duke. Wow.
I mean, that's saying something. I really didn't understand how good he was until, I got along in my career, but they said he was really good. Did you see him play?
Oh, I did, definitely. 1962. Before that, I saw him play in the first game that I ever went to, which was in the Polo Grounds when I was 4.5 years old. And my grandfather took me to see the Giants, the New York Giants, play the Philadelphia Phillies. And I know he was the first batter that I ever saw. He was the leadoff batter for the Phillies. And there you go. I not only saw him, first player I ever saw bat. And just great memories of growing up watching baseball in the 50s. I lost my innocence about the game at 12 when the Giants moved to San Francisco, the Dodgers moved to Los Angeles. Really changed things. So, but what can I tell you? I got an appreciation for the Yankees, who were at that time, because of the moves, the only team in town. But what a team. Mickey Mantle, Yogi Berra, Moose Skowron, etc.
Holy cow. You're mentioning a lot of these great superstars. You know that this past year we've lost so many of the greats, and they put a lot of these, not only greats, but the players that they played with. And wow, you talk about a great blessing for me, because I would be able to, talking to myself, I go, I pitched against those guys, or I played against them. I remember the first great pitcher, and this is when I first got called up in 1975, was Tom Seaver with the New York Mets. And I tell this story, I've probably told it to you, Ralph, but, we've lost Tom Seaver, and I remember being in the bullpen, because rookie just getting called up, and the Phillies with Schmidt and Luzinski and Boa, and some of the old players that I'm sure a lot of the fans remember, that's been from yesteryear. And I remember the game was like 2-1. The Mets were winning. It was the 9th inning, and the Phillies got a runner on, and Seaver was cruising along. Maybe it was 1-0 or whatever, and I heard of Tom Seaver, but I had no idea what a Tom Seaver fastball looked like. And all of a sudden, here comes Schmidt, Luzinski. In those days, it could have been Dick Allen, and it was like Seaver turned it up about 10 miles an hour, it seemed like, on his fastball. And it was, I'm not kidding you, Ralph, it was like 9 pitches, and the game was over. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, and over again. It was like Tom Seaver says, you know what, I'm bringing this one home. And I couldn't believe the way that guy just closed out the game and how great he was.
What did watching these superstars early on teach you that made you helped you develop as a pitcher yourself? Because you weren't chopped liver, my friend. You had a hell of a career. You were not a superstar. I think we'll both agree on that. But what did you learn from the superstars that made you a damn good major league pitcher?
Well, thank you, Ralph. I appreciate that. It was, it was right. I mean, just the first thing that comes to mind is work ethic. I mean, the guys, they came to the ballpark, they would go into the training room and, you know, whatever they needed to do to take care of an injury or get ready to make sure they were good and loose to go out and take their batting practice. And then, you know, I can use Mike Schmidt as an example. Mike was a tremendous home run hitter, but, you know, he hit most of his home runs to left center, left field. He hit about, you know, enough to the opposite field. But Mike always used to make sure he didn't try to overswing. He worked on making sure that he hit line drives and stuff like that. And then he would take his ground balls and, you know, he made sure that the batting coach or the guy hitting the ground balls to him before the game, that he worked on everything. So I tried to emulate that. I remember, I don't want to take too much time, but the great Jim Cott, he'd come out and he would call me, hey, you know, hey, Lefty. He would call me Lefty when the real Lefty, Steve Carlton, was on the team. But he would say, let's play some catch. And I got to play catch before the game with Jim Cott, and he would work on how he held the ball, you know, his delivery and stuff like that, just like playing catch in the outfield. And, you know, I emulated that. And, boy, I was lucky to play on some teams with some really, really great historic players.
Tell me something about tuning your game. Does changing grips, experimenting, like you were talking about, different ways to hold the ball, did you ever come across something where you went, whoa, I just discovered something, my ball can move downward this way, and I'm holding it just a little bit differently. Did you ever have one of those moments where you changed a little something and it really upped your game?
There was a couple times. That's a great question, Ralph. A couple times. One was being able to learn how to throw a two-seam fastball, which was more of a moving fastball that would sink, and if you were a left-handed pitcher like I was, the ball would move away and sink away from a right-handed hitter, and then a four-seam fastball, which was more of a strikeout pitch that would ride in on a right-handed hitter. And one of my biggest I want to kick myself moments was one time I was watching Bruce Sutter pitch, who was a great forkball pitcher. He didn't throw very hard, but you know he could make. I don't know if you guys remember, he played, came up, I believe, with the Chicago Cubs, a great pitcher, and then finished with St. Louis, I believe. But Ralph, you would know better with that. But he had that great forkball, and he could make the hitters look really ridiculous up there. And so I tried to hold the ball like that. And it started moving really, really good for me. And as I got older and wasn't throwing as hard, I thought, wow, I'm going to try that. And I was practicing it, and it was really, really good. And dummy me, I never took it to the out to the mound to try it out on the hitters. But I think that would have been something. You're talking about holding the ball. That forkball is like an unhittable pitch.
I saw a picture of Elroy Face and holding his famous forkball. And his fingers were so separated that the entire ball fit between those two, the first and second finger, the pointer finger and the middle finger. Are your hands particularly big?
I think they're a little bit, I'm 6'5", so I don't think it's any bigger than normal, but I can tell you what those guys used to do, guys that had a forkball, they would take the ball and jam it into their fingers or in between their fingers, and they would walk around the outfield and stuff like that when we were taking batting practice, and sometimes you would see one of the pitchers sitting there in the dugout with the ball between their fingers trying to stretch it all out. So I guess some of them, Elroy Faze probably did it so long that they stayed that way.
I went to the grave with, didn't go to the grave. He's in his 90s, by the way.
Okay.
Living a good, long life. Hey, what an interview, as usual, Randy Lerch. The Blade. How'd that get started?
That came from Larry Boa. With the Phillies, Larry Boa was like the antagonator. Is that the right word? He was
antagonist, but
he was antagonistic. He used to just irritate everybody, and I remember that one time Larry Boa he almost got killed by Luzinski because they were. Luzinski was struggling and one year, and he's a great hitter, home run hitter and player, and he was struggling one time, and everybody's getting on his weight, and Luzinski struck out to lose the game, and Boa yelled at him, if it would have been a cheeseburger, you would have hit it, and he almost killed that day, and then one day Larry always had a name for you after the game. Seemed like, and I had a real good game, and I came in, and it was my rookie year, and Boa said, you know what? He goes, I'm gonna start calling you the Blade. He goes, because you're skinny as a blade, but sharp as a razor. You were that way, and it stuck.
Nice name. Larry Boa from the Sacramento area. Did you know him growing up as a kid?
I didn't know Larry. I actually didn't know of him until I was signed by the Phillies, because Larry and I are about 10 years apart. One player I think Dusty Baker's about 5 or 6 years older, and he also was a great player from the Sacramento area. And I was manager with the Houston Astros, but those are two guys from the Sacramento area that I never got to know until after I made it to the major leagues. But great players from Sac.
Okay, the last player I want to ask you about, because you have a Philadelphia history, so to speak, is Dick, don't call me Richie Allen.
Dick, don't call me Richard Allen. Yes, Dick Allen. I was lucky enough to meet Dick Allen and play on the same team in 1975. The Phillies got him back, and I was called up at the end of the season. I was 20 years old, finished my season in Double-A baseball, and I remember I was watching Dick Allen. He was with the White Sox. And I thought, man, that guy is not only a great player. I always thought Dick Allen looked great in a major league uniform. And when he went to the Phillies at the end of his career, I don't know if he was with the Phillies before that, but I know I met him in 1975, and when I got called up, I asked my dad. I said, Dad, from Sacramento, I said, you got to come out here, and be a part of this. So I brought my dad down to the dugout in 1975 during batting practice, and Dick Allen was sitting at the very end of the dugout, and he was smoking a cigarette, and he was drinking some coffee, and I don't know what he might have had in that coffee, but I heard some tales of that. And anyway, I brought my dad down there, and I can remember how cool he was, because I said, Mr. Allen, this is my dad, Bob Lerch. And I remember the coolest way Dick Allen says, Mr. Lerch, nice to meet you, Mr. Lerch. And my dad, being a big fan, and idol of these great players, I just, it was like it was yesterday, Ralph, the grin on my dad's face. And one other thing is, I remember Dick Allen, the bat that he swung was a 42-ounce bat. And Dick Allen had forearms, oh my goodness, like legs, like a linebacker, and And he would swing that bat, and I remember him hitting a ball to right center field and hit it off the face of the second deck scoreboard when I was sitting on the dugout. So that's how I remember Dick Allen.
Well, you mentioned all the people we've lost in the last year or so. He's one of them, and I'm glad we could end the show talking about the smile he put on your father's face.
I'll tell you, it was, and I remember so many players that I got to play. How about Willie Stargell? Willie Stargell's birthday was just a couple of days ago, and I got to face Pops many times. And somebody asked me, how was it to face the lumber company in Pittsburgh? And you can imagine, but the great Willie Stargell, we lost him, and also all the great ballparks from my era are gone, and the memories to be able to play in those parks were very special also.
But you hit on it though, we have our memories, our respective memories. You playing, me watching, how about that? Not bad.
That's great.
All right, let's keep it going another 20 or 30 years, Randy.
I love it. I love talking to you, my friend. It's been a while since we've talked, and can't wait to read your book.
I can't wait to have you read it. And when things get better, you come down and bring that lefty glove with you, and we'll have a catch in Alameda at Encinal High School, where Pops, Willie Stargell, went to high school.
Oh, wow.
Like 5 blocks from where I'm standing.
We can share some more stories, my friend.
That'd be great. Love talking to you, Randy. And if you're listening out there, you and I, or the I, are blessed. Randy Lerch is a joy. Thank you again, sir.
You're welcome. Talk soon, buddy.
All right. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Randy Lerch was the guest. I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all. Happy trails.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.